Look, it's a flood!
It's a flood!
It's flooding!
Get away!
Quick, we need to get to higher ground!
Open the floodgates!
You want me in the middle so that you can work with this laptop.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I can do that.
Traditionally, the guest is always set in the middle.
Not a problem.
Doesn't mean the tradition is something that you have to stick to.
Okay, Clarence Thomas.
You know, but we can include one tradition that's fine. Hi, my name is Uncle Clarence.
Were you calling for an event of some sorts? Something where the crowd would literally like rise up and crash through. This is Doc
And Ziggy and
With-
Lil B
Hello,
our
everyone.
special guest Lil B.
Glad to be back.
with the flood. And Doc, what do we do?
Well, you know, this is the show about the news happening around us and how it shapes the culture that defines us. And around here, we like to take our pop
To
perspective
put the culture in context.
and make the mainstream make sense.
Because if we do not make sense,
Then it
we
don't
do
make dollars.
Holla!
Holla.
You guys really coming up with a lot of new slogans and catchphrases. since I've been
Branding,
gone,
baby.
right?
Branding, baby.
We're good. We know what we're doing at this point, kind of,
Hey,
sort of.
it's
Also,
been-
way to tell us you haven't been listening.
That's
I'm not trying to hide that in any way.
Hey, Joe Biden. That's how you build back better, baby.
Bars! Alright,
Okay.
well, I mean, I guess we can go a rundown through what we have to do this week and what we got to talk about. There's a jewel ban.
Oh, there was a jewel
There was a
jewel
jewel
ban.
ban.
Just the jewel, yeah. That's
Just the
it,
jewel
right?
ban, right? Was anything else happen this week? Were there more January 6th
There's some
hearings and
January 6th
testimony?
hearings, and Ezra Miller might be Charles Manson.
Oh, more Ezra Miller news. Okay.
You know, people can't sue the police for failing to Mirandize somebody.
What? What do you? Oh, so more like law stuff.
Yeah, Texas was considering secession.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not news.
They need a 7th flag. 6 just wasn't a great number.
Do you know how blown I was when I found out that was like a Texas thing? And I'm like,
You never realized that the Six Flags amusement park literally was because it originated in Texas?
Oh no! When I found, I think it was like a dollop or something. I found that shit out on. I was like, my mind was like blown. It was like the twist at the end of the story. I was like, what?
I mean, they did at one point. They were their own country. That's the 6th flag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were their own thing before they decided to be a state.
They're also the only state in the union that holds the rights to be able to split up into 4 different states. Like,
Yeah, have you seen the size of Texas?
yeah,
It's a big-ass state.
yeah, 4 different states. Like, that's crazy.
Next, Alaska's going to come in and be like, you know what? We're going to be 5. And then Texas is going to come back and be like, no.
Nah.
We're the biggest state here.
7 flags. So that's it though. That's all that happened
Yeah,
this week. There
nothing major.
No, nothing else. Oh, and Roe v. Wade was overturned.
I mean, like, but that's something we could gloss over, right? Because
It's not a big deal.
yeah, no big deal.
Who's
Nothing
Roe v. Wade? That's a basketball player. A turnover.
I think it's a
Is
band.
that the reason why the Celtics lost?
I think it's
Okay.
a band.
That was a bit of a low blow, especially on a really serious topic.
Yeah, the fact that you're a Celtics fan. By the way, there's trade rumors.
I'm just coming with all the fucking hot takes
Yeah,
this
well, if
week.
he's coming in with the low blows of something that happened last week, how about we tell everybody what happened this week in history, 1 week from today?
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
That's the day we're recording this, just so everybody knows. But the day that you'll be hearing it is the
that
day.
it releases.
That's the day we're talking about.
Yeah, so we are talking about. Hold on. I literally wrote it down earlier. Hold on. May 2nd.
We are talking
about July 2nd.
Did you say May 2nd?
I think he said May.
Okay, all right, we could do that one more time.
No. I'll leave it there. In fairness, because I let you die on the Lake Zelda thing last week.
Did
know
you
what,
really let
Yeah.
me die on that?
Hey, look, words are hard, okay?
Words are hard. I also left Jalen Green in, so you know we both took our L's on that.
So June 2nd.
July 2nd.
July 2nd. God damn it.
This is the start that we're going for? Oh, this is gonna be a hell of a show.
Yes.
All right, well, this
that's
first
what
one
happens
is
when
wild.
you start the show with bourbon.
This first one's wild, so I think I'm actually just gonna skip it because that almost sounds like a Russia, Florida.
What kind of a setup is that? And we have dockets, so how can it be a Russia, Florida if I can look at it
Well,
right
how
here?
can in 1843 a headline that says an alligator falls from the sky in a thunderstorm?
Was it also a tornado?
They said there was no alligator population there, and then all of a sudden, after a thunderstorm, there was one in the middle of Main Street, like 2 feet long. Nobody knows how they got there. The whole local government actually they determined that it just fell from the sky.
I like how you didn't assume the alligator's gender just now. I really appreciate the zoomer in me. Really appreciated that.
I didn't even have to think about that. You want to know why? Because I'm learning.
Hey,
So-
everyone's gotta learn. Everyone's gotta grow.
So they fell from the sky,
So
and
the alligator fell from the sky, and the local government had no idea how it happened, and they just determined that it fell from the sky, and that was the official.
how the
ruling.
fuck do you just determine something falls from the sky? Go
That's
ahead,
the-
B.
1943?
Go ahead, B.
That's they didn't want to care about it anymore. They were like, how the fuck do we deal with this alligator that is now in our midst?
So was this not Florida?
This was South Carolina.
I feel like that's still alligator adjacent territory.
I feel like there might have been a hurricane, like a really powerful hurricane, and this alligator somehow like championed through the hurricane.
Absolutely fucking not. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe that there are hurricane. Oh, I was thinking hurricane winds picked it up Wizard of Oz style.
Yeah,
and,
that's literally what I'm thinking.
That's what you meant.
Well, you got to get back from the fell from the sky thing because it didn't literally fall from the sky. That was what they came up with.
Right. That's because I'm like, when you say fell from the sky, so I'm imagining pieces of an alligator in the road,
No,
right?
it was a whole alligator.
Then it didn't fall from the sky like fucking Operation Dumbo Drop. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Sunday. All right, you want me to read the article from 1843?
Please?
The thunderstorm of Sunday night, the winding up of one of the most oppressive days ever inflicted on mortal man, was really terrible. The whole foremost growled thunder and about lightning. It was blinding to look about, and at frequent intervals, the thunderbolts were heard with a power that
Who
shook
the fuck wrote
solidest
this article?
structures.
Charles Dickens?
1843. I was getting ready to say something. This is the
That rolled
wordiest
the
article
angry
about an
winds along
alligator.
the winds of the storm. St. Paul's Church was struck but not seriously injured. Beyond
By
this-
the alligator?
Dude, skip to the alligator.
Beyond of which there was no casualty, unless we account for such the raining down of an alligator with 2 feet long at the corner of Wentworth and Amon Street.
Okay, that makes things a bit more understandable. It's a 2-foot long alligator.
So it was a baby alligator.
Yeah, that could
a little
easily
one.
get caught up in a wind gust, right? Like a powerful enough wind gust.
Anyway, in 1881, President James Garfield was shot by Charles L. Gitzow, a disappointed office seeker, and Garfield died 79 days later.
What a follow-up.
I just want to pause and cycle back real quick that I really want to say that news article from 1843 really sounds like a college kid now who just hit the thesaurus button or word. He's like, I need this to sound
The
smarter.
torrential downpour.
I should have felt attacked, but I don't need a thesaurus. So,
I am the thesaurus.
You're right. We're not as smart as you are.
Calm down, Walter White. Walter Webster.
Please continue.
please! Alright, if you're Doxtradamus, I'm Walter Webster. Yes. And Sigmund Freud.
So James Garfield got shot. Does anybody remember any contributing anything? Did James Garfield contribute anything to get shot?
Disappointed office seeker, so probably the equivalent of Trump shooting Biden.
At first I wanted to be outraged, and then I thought that's probably not far from something that could actually happen.
I mean, I already have a neighbor. Well, neighbor is a loose word. They live about a mile away. They're just on my route for. They're on my route for a run.
Somebody in the neighborhood.
Someone in the neighborhood, not a neighbor, but they already have a Trump 2024 sign up, and was I was like running by it, and I was like, come on, like.
And the hard part is if he doesn't run against somebody like AOC or like somebody.
She won't be legally able to run for the presidency at that time either. I think she'll be 34.
Is it not 34?
It's 35.
It's 35.
35. You have to be a
That's
natural
crazy.
U.S.-born citizen and be 35.
Yeah. You
And
hear that, Ted Cruz?
Surprisingly, not white and landowning. And male.
For now.
For now.
Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas.
Calling you out.
In 1901, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid rob a train for $40,000.
Every time I
Did
hear...
you convert that to
No.
what it would mean now?
I
got it.
Run it.
Run it. I'm
Alright,
Googling
so
it.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid commit a train robbery for $40,000 in Wagner, Montana on July 2nd in 1901.
All of that shit sounds fake. Like, every time I hear about people robbing trains and shit, like, I know it used to be, like, a real thing, but it's just so, like, campy at this point that I'm like, people don't really... Like, that's like hearing about somebody robbing an armored car, right? It's like,
Also,
that shit doesn't
like,
happen.
That's one of my favorite movies, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I love that movie.
Also, but I mean, like, apparently during, like, the 90s, like, bank robberies were, like, a really big thing in the beginning of the... Like, they said every bank in LA was robbed at least 4 times a month. Like, during the 90s. Like...
I mean, the amount of security that we have now versus what they had back then is...
Yeah.
I mean,
Hold on to that thought.
Oh, also, just real quick, I did just Google it. $40,000 in 1901 would be $1.375 million.
God damn. That...
Inflation.
I guess I understand why you would rob a train now.
$40,000. I mean, like, you take that and go back and, like, take a smaller amount. Oh, think about what $100 would get you.
Right.
I mean, $40,000 at the end will get you shot out.
$100 was probably
You know,
like a year's
but-
salary for some people, right?
If that. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I would imagine some people are making less.
Yeah,
I'd imagine. I mean, in 1901.
Imagine trying to sell a PlayStation 5 in 1901.
I want you to just pause for a second and really think about what you just asked.
Right.
I know.
The second you turn the TV on, you would get shot.
What
Right?
What TV?
Then how do you sell the PlayStation?
Exactly why I said imagine trying to. Look, in 30 years this will be really sweet. Wait, never mind. It's
30
HDMI
years? Yeah, I was gonna say 30 years.
only. Anyway, in 1916, Vladimir Lenin says imperialism causes capitalism, and the rest of us go herder.
Someone should tell him about Vladdy Putin. Like, cause if imperialism causes capitalism, what's going on in Russia?
I mean, actually, they're about to default on $100 million in loans. I think today.
I guess that's what playing hardball gets you. So do we have any more this day in history's 1 week from today's?
Yeah, the cool one is last week we talked about Amelia Earhart flying across the Atlantic. Well, in 1937 and 1 week later, she got lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
So do we really think she got lost, or did she,
She was declared dead 2 years later.
In 1939, right? I mean, there's so much conspiracy theory that goes into Amelia Earhart's flight
Right.
across the Atlantic.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, like, that's been something that's been debated for a long time.
What's your favorite Amelia Earhart conspiracy?
Ooh, my favorite one
Yeah.
was that the Bermuda Triangle actually... Have you ever seen the movie... came out in like 89 by James
Gateway
Cameron.
Outland?
No, it was underwater based. The Abyss. The Abyss was what
Okay.
it was called.
I might have seen it. I
It's
don't know.
that there was an underwater civilization, essentially,
Right.
that they discovered at the bottom of the abyss. And the Amelia Earhart conspiracy that I think I saw this years ago. Something I've never even thought about until you literally just brought it up. But was that she got discovered by an underwater civilization in the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, so like her plane crashed in the water and they like rescued her, kind of,
Either
sort of.
rescued her
Became a
or-
mermaid.
Either rescued her or did the whole alien thing.
Amelia
and,
Mermaid.
studied
Yeah,
or
adopted
whatever.
her. It was like
Yeah, whatever you want to say, but essentially she was found by this underwater
Yeah.
race that we don't know about, and
Have you- listen.
bring up Atlantis and all that mess.
just watching regular like normie documentaries about the ocean. I'm always like, when you get to like the deep levels, I'm
Right.
like, oh, that looks like Cthulhu. Like, yeah, no, I totally
there
believe.
is that one point, Point Nemo. It's in the Pacific.
Okay.
And it is
the Pacific is gnarly, dog.
it is the farthest point from land anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
And the people who get the closest to Point Nemo on a regular basis are the people in the fucking ISS. As they orbit over top of it, because it's closer for them from a 3D perspective to go straight up
right.
to the ISS than
Then
it is for anyone else on land to
That's-
this point.
That's fucking bananas, right? Like
To
you're
Point
like
Nemo.
It's closer to space. Like the space station is closer to Point Nemo than anybody else.
Any
is.
other land base on the planet.
Right,
And
like-
it's like, you know what? If we want to just say Cthulhu's there, I wouldn't.
Right.
My brain is short-circuiting trying to comprehend that.
Well, I mean, how high up is the ISS? It's a few hundred miles up, I believe.
Right, it's above that line or whatever that they take tourists, space tourists and stuff out to. Like
Definitely.
it's like way above.
It's
that.
got to be above that.
Yeah.
Because it is in orbit around the planet.
Right.
And so when you take into calculation how far some of the oceans really do stretch and expand, the ability to say that there could be something there that we just don't know about because we know more about space than we do about our own oceans.
And that's bananas to me, dog. Like, that's banana. We've been on, like, that's how we used to get around, right? Was, like, on the water and boats and shit. And, like, when I hear that we know more about space than we know about the shit that we've been using to, like, go continent to continent.
Well, I mean, let me think about this from, like, a real simple logistic perspective.
Is there
Like,
a simple logistic perspective to think of this from?
Talking about why we can explore one more than the other?
Pressure.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, in space there's no air, so you're worrying about air escaping, where in going underwater, you're talking about the deeper you go, the more exponentially increasing weight is going on whatever craft you're sending down.
Okay, I see your argument, and I raise you the fact that blood literally boils in space without those spacesuits, and we figured out a way to combat that, but we can't find a way to deal with the pressure of the ocean?
As a
We can now.
229-year-old vampire,
Yeah.
I already knew that. That's good to know.
I mean, we can now. We have sent a couple
Yeah.
different groups of people
Right.
down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't exactly stay down there for super long,
No.
but there's also, I feel like there's just less interest.
Which
in
is
that.
still kind of weird to me, right? Because, like, especially when we're talking about, like, not to get a little off topic, but when we're talking about, like, the kind of, like, resource scarcity that we're facing now, it seems like we're missing, like, a whole treasure trove of, like, a literal, like, sunken treasure trove of resources down in the bottom of the ocean.
Atlantis.
I mean, that was what I was going at with that whole Bermuda
Yeah.
Triangle bit.
So she found Atlantis. In 1937, Amelia Earhart found Atlantis.
I kind of like
and
that.
kind of just liked it.
Enough to stay there?
Enough to stay.
Yeah.
And send Tupac an invite.
Yep. Sent a telegram out to Tupac, like, beep, 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 beep.
Morse-
And he was like,
Morse
"Stardust,
code.
this is a fire beat." And then he was like, "Oh shit, there's a message."
No, what it actually is a lot of his songs were actually just Morse code.
Right.
And it turns out that he was communicating with her the whole time.
Through the whole 7-day theory. That was just the DM to fucking Amelia Earhart. I'm coming, baby. Oh my god,
I
okay.
ain't mad at you for getting a head start.
Get lost on that island. Anyway, so,
In 1966, in celebration of the anniversary of Title IX passing, Wimbledon women's tennis, Billie Jean King beats Maria Bueno of Brazil for her first of 12 Grand Slam titles.
shout out to Billie Jean King, though. I mean,
A feminist icon.
is
12?
yeah, I was gonna
12,
say 12. Yeah, that's I mean,
Do you want to explain what a Grand
So
Slam
Grand
title
Slams
is?
are there are 4 a year. It is the Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and US Open in tennis.
Okay.
There's only 4 a year. And it is always the best, the best, the best, the best, the best of the best. And tennis is one of those sports where when you're really, really good, you're gonna win every time. Because individual sports are generally like that, except for golf, because the course hates you.
I don't know. I feel like once you're really, really good at golf, though,
You look like Tiger Woods in 2008. But you have 4 shots to win a major. She won 12. So if you just say she didn't win every major every year, but it would be the equivalent of 3 straight years of winning every single major tournament.
And see, that's what I thought you meant by a Grand Slam.
That's what I thought.
Because see, there's 4 of them, and it's like if you win all 4, wouldn't that be considered a Grand Slam?
Yeah, it's like
I can see. That's what I was.
So Grand Slams
Yeah.
are there are 4 Grand Slam tournaments
Per year.
Per-
So
per
winning
year.
one of them is considered winning a Grand
Yeah,
Slam.
like a piece of the Triple Crown would be the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, or Belmont Stakes.
Fair. Oh man, I was at the Derby this year.
Did you look? That's on my bucket list because I'm a
It was
Maryland
pretty
resident.
wild.
Was it?
It was pretty wild.
Didn't they? I heard they had like some random. Wasn't like Rick Ross performing
Yeah, no,
it this
there were a lot of
year?
And
random
then they had the random horse that was like a fill-in was the winner. It
know
was
what I wanna do?
Rich Strike or something.
Oh,
And,
I bet you that pissed a
wanna
lot
go
of
to the
season
Derby?
betters off.
dude, it was going for like 1 to 81 or something.
Oh my god! I'm almost mad I didn't
If
go.
he wants to go to the high class Derby, I want to go to the pit show at the Preakness.
Hey, I was there
The
for a bachelor
literal,
party.
like, dirtiest fucking thing you can imagine. Do you want to know how...
Would you call that the dirtiest event in Maryland?
Yeah, because Buck Cherry played
it's,
there.
it's pretty rowdy. It's pretty rowdy. It's pretty grody.
Buck Cherry
And I
played
do have to
there.
admit the Derby was also it was pretty packed, and it was. I mean, I'm not spending any money to go up into the stands. I mean, like, we were out there for a bachelor party. We weren't planning on going out there Derby weekend. We didn't think about it. We were like, yeah, everyone can go this weekend. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're going during the Derby.
Yeah.
I guess we should go. And, man, we're walking around, and one of the funnier things that happened to me when I was there, we were waiting for a couple other of our group to place some bets. We had just ordered some drinks.
Okay.
And this kid, and I mean kid, like, looked like he was like 13 or something.
Oh shit!
Comes up to me and he goes, "Hi, will you buy a cigar for me?"
Hey, Mister.
Like, full-blown hey mistered me in the middle of a crowded area. I mean,
don't be a knock, Mister. You gonna buy the
the line for the cigars was like 15 people deep. And I'm like gonna stand there with this kid's money. I'm like, no. And that's what I said. Without missing a beat, I was just like, no.
Get out of here.
And he was like, I'll pay for it. You don't have to buy it for me. I was like, no. Again,
I'm
no.
like, did you think I was going to buy you the cigar?
I'm definitely not buying you one, regardless of whose money it is.
Right.
You know what you should have done? You should have done like a Mean Joe Green and be like, yeah, and then bought him a Coke and be like, here, kid.
You come back with a Twix, like, now get out of here.
I'm just like,
I'm saving your life.
I was so baffled by the I mean, I
The
gotta hand it
balls.
to the kid. The
Right.
kid had balls.
Right.
To come up to me and like be like, hey mister, would you do this for me? But like I'm looking
He
around.
even like puppy dog eyes you or
Oh my
anything.
god, dude, we are literally living in 1920 something, right? Like, you went to fucking Preakness and a fucking, like, newsie came up to you.
I mean, he's wearing suspenders, he's got a bow tie on.
See,
and
is
I'm
it
like,
tweed? Were they tweed suspenders?
I'm like, what is happening? I was like, and I'm just sitting there sucking down my mint julep, and I'm like, oh, I'm drinking this. I was like, I've never had this before.
Don't knock a mint julep.
I'm
no,
not. It
at
was
a
just,
Preakness.
it was literally whiskey with mint.
Yep.
There was nothing else in it, with some ice.
Damn,
With
man.
some
that
ice.
sounds like a hard drink.
Yeah.
Kind of like in 1991, there was this hard movie that came out. Like I said, for you to check mark what you said, Boys in the Hood was released July 2nd, 1991. Directed by John Singleton, starring
man.
Cuba Gooding Jr. and Ice Cube.
No, that was the one where the guy would walk down the street whistling, and they would like, hey, this guy's coming. I forget his name.
I think that was The
No,
Wire.
yeah,
That's The Wire.
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
The Wire?
yeah,
The Wire.
no,
That's The Wire.
no, Boys in the Hood is Ricky! That's
Doughboy.
that's the movie
Jerry
that,
Curls.
like, really, I guess, put Los Angeles, it was, Boys in the Hood was Los
Was it LA?
Angeles?
Definitely Los
Yeah,
Angeles.
South Central. Yeah, Boys in the Hood was the movie that put, like, South Central Los Angeles hood life on display for all of America to see.
Right.
Right, like, there was
This
the
was
typical...
after NWA, so this was instead of just hearing it, it gave a visual representation.
Well, this was one of the movies
And this was
in the
also-
string of
Yeah.
those the quote-unquote, like,
This
hood
was
movies.
came out probably about 4 years after Do the Right Thing, which is the Spike Lee joint.
Right. And also, I mean, like, at that time, though, I mean, with NWA's popularity, it was more publicized by them, and then making a movie out of that scenario as well really kind of...
Boys in the Hood was not just like a... It was a black movie, but it appealed more than Black America.
Well, because it was like watching a car crash, right? Like, I mean, it was the hood movie genre, right? I feel like really became a staple in America at that time, because not only was crime rate up in the 90s, like murder rates were like insane in the fucking 90s, like they had gone way up. The crack epidemic was like, you know, like at its peak in the early 90s and stuff, and then gangster rap takes off, right? And it becomes the cultural focus as we're talking about the crack epidemic, as we're talking about the murder rates in the inner cities rising and stuff like that. So then here come these string of like cultural...
Here comes the CIA with more crack. But continue.
Here come these string of like cultural cornerstones. Now we've got gangster rap, right? Like burgeoning out of this hip hop thing that just kind of like settled ground. And along come these movies like Juice, Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, New Jack City, that really take like the stuff that the music is talking about and the shit that you see on the news and kind of like tries to humanize it in a way, right? Like Boys in the Hood introduces you to these young adolescents that are growing up a part of this world that is happening around them. Right. And how they adapt to that world, right? And the main character is a kid who was living with his mom, and she can't handle him anymore, so she sends him to go live with his father. So we're already starting with like a broken home kind of scenario, right? Which is something
parents are not together anymore. Mom can't support the kid,
right? Which at that time in the early 90s, like that was still kind of like a controversial thing, right? Like we were coming off of those like heavy family values that some people
nuclear family
fighting for and claiming that, like, you know, that's what America really is. But like
white picket fence,
this was, you know, gunshots behind your house. Like,
where those good old-fashioned values.
I mean, you got to think about.
We used to rely.
You got to think also just the amount of like kind of a shock aspect that probably gave a lot of people that really had never been introduced to that type of world before.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, 91 is the year I was born, so like, you know, I've kind of seen a lot of that. Just
right. You grew up kind of
like growing up with it. You know, I mean, like, I'm not saying I grew up in that type of situation, but like I was immersed with it. American History X, wow, the one that you just Googled there, that's a hard one.
So what I was gonna say is I feel like these string of like hood movies gave breathing room for movies like American History X to be made, right? Like, because when you like, if you look at the cinematic or the style, like the cinematic style
scene in American History X,
right? If you look at the cinematic style of both of the two movies, right, they're kind of similar, right? It's just American History X is more of like the white perspective, how like growing up in these backwoods, like forgotten parts of America can corrupt the youth, right? And it's more of being a product of your environment.
And that also stemmed from the fathers in that movie.
Right.
Edward Norton's character, his dad was the one who was really kind of force-feeding that.
Right, indoctrinating him early. Right.
And they're living in Venice. Like, this isn't some rural part of the country. This is Venice Beach.
Right. And which I guess it traditionally Venice Beach is looked at as like, you know, a place for relaxation and like recreation, but it's
Venice Beach.
I was gonna say it's actually kind of like
chaotic,
and dirty and like White Hood, right? So it's like that's the kind of way that Boys in the Hood took South Central LA, right? Because everybody has this idea like, oh, LA, it's the place where all the stars and Hollywood is, right? But LA is filled with tons of like crime and I mean people who were living in LA around the 90s knew what the fuck was going on in LA, right? But people in middle America might not have, right?
Well, it still kind of falls back to that fanization of what California is, you know? Have you ever seen the old commercials that Arnold Schwarzenegger used to try to be like, hey, come out to California. Board meetings and board meetings and board meetings. It was like snowboard, surfboard, skateboard.
Hiking.
And it's like,
all of that
it's like all of that shit I love. You know, like, I love all that outdoorsy stuff and everything, but I've been to California. I don't think I would ever want to live there.
It's not a place that you would want to take a break.
Just in the same way as you don't focus your attention on how you make your thyroid gland function. So in the same way, you don't have any attention focused on how you shine the sun. So then, let me connect this with the problem of birth and death.
Here, like
A BetterHelp sponsorship, also a ZipRecruiter sponsorship, also
A sponsorship.
a sponsorship.
A sponsorship.
You could sponsor
a
us.
second sponsorship, because if you're looking for Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh or Blood, board games, or anything like that, you can check out tokenmtg.com, use the promo code Ziggy, and get 10% off of your order.
And if you want to donate to us yourself, you can find us at the Flood Pod on Patreon or on everything. And that's on
everything, including League of Legends. I've been playing a lot of Teamfight Tactics on the Flood Pod account.
Do
and
they actually support you by fundraising your League of Legends addiction?
One of the most interesting
That's a
things
free-to-play
about
game, sir.
Damn it, I retract my statement.
all I'm saying is get on the Twitch with it.
The problem is I play on my phone a lot.
I feel like there's definitely a way to stream your mobile on Twitch.
I'm
There's
sure
gotta
there
be.
I'm sure it's been figured out.
Yeah, no, there's a third-party app you
I'm
can
sure
use.
there's a way you can
Yeah.
do that.
You know what hasn't been figured out?
What?
The ending of One Piece.
That was a nice transition.
So we brought Lil B on here for basically what we
Specifically.
intended
Specifically.
to be a Nerd Corner episode. Because there are three major things that happened in anime recently within the past 2 weeks.
Oh, just an anime?
Well, we're also encompassing manga, just the culture is all.
Manga, right. No, so that's all we're talking about.
So
though.
One Piece, Oda has gone on a 1 month break to prepare for the final arc of One Piece.
And let me reiterate that because final arc is not the proper term. That is exactly how it was worded in the English translation of his announcement, but there's no way it's going to be one arc to the end of the
Also-
story. It's going to be a final saga.
Also, following the death of the creator of Berserk, I believe his protege and his studio will be continuing the manga.
Not necessarily his protege. It's actually his childhood friend. So Kentaro Miura died in May of last year.
Yeah.
So May of
R.I.P.
2021. RIP to
R.I.P.
Kentaro Miura, one of the greatest. That story is amazingly enthralling with some of the best character written arcs I've ever encountered.
I consistently see Griffith at the top of, in the top 10 of, greatest anime or manga characters ever.
And it's still questionable whether or not he is a hero or a villain. Everything he's done has been wildly fucked up, but it's
Right.
also been for kind of the betterment of mankind, so... Anyway, Kentaro Miura passed away, and there was a lot of debate as to whether or not the story was going to continue. So Young Animal is the name of the publisher, Berserk. When he died, he had a bunch of apprentices, and they took all of his final panels, put them together, and then there was a little bit more they needed to fill in to close out the chapter. And then that was the final chapter. It came out posthumously, and that was it. The fan base was kind
Right.
of like, okay,
That's all we get.
this is
right.
all we get. And it ended on such a note that we were just blown away, and we're like, this isn't exactly a conclusion, but I'm okay with it ending here.
Right.
A lot of people
Right.
who read Berserk, who are into dark fantasy like that, also
Yeah.
read Game of Thrones.
Yeah. You knew exactly where I was going, right?
Exactly. It's a dark fantasy, and Berserk is one of the highest critically acclaimed dark fantasies
Yeah.
of all time,
Yeah.
even though it's told through the medium of manga.
Right.
And
Up there,
Which
with,
I feel like-
the Dark Tower, movie.
the Dark Tower is its own special breed of dark fantasy because it throws in vampires, it throws in aliens, it throws in a cosmic turtle.
Right, like it's a hodgepodge
It's-
of like
it's
it's kind of
an-
what like Lovecraft Country was, right? Like they
Yeah.
took everything that Lovecraft did and was like, but black people.
No, honestly, that's a great analogy. It's such a good analogy of the Dark Tower.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
dude.
but the Berserk is right up there with A Song of Ice and Fire.
Okay.
Now, Song of Ice and Fire is also unconcluded, and that's a really hot topic to get into because
Right.
the fan base for that is
like, how do you finish the show when the book's not finished, right?
I
Like
mean,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then that's when Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones started going downhill around.
Well,
season
I
5
mean, they're
anyway.
also now
Yeah.
going to be doing a series about Jon Snow after the events of Game of Thrones.
They're doing like several like
And they're, I mean, the Dance of Dragons, which is the one about
Well,
Targaryens. That one actually does have George R.R. Martin Lord back.
A Dance with Dragons is the name of the 5th book. It's not Targaryen specific. A Dance with Dragons is the 5th book. You're thinking of Fire and Blood, which is it's a lore-based book that goes into the history of Westeros.
Ooh, come through with those lighthouse
I think-
updates.
I think the name of the series that HBO is doing is called Dance of Dragons or something like that.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised with that because it's
It
like,
might be House of
it's-
Dragons.
it's
It
a-
might be House of Dragons.
I could see that because that would really be like, this is specifically about Targaryen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dance with Dragons is the 5th book, and that is where it led off. And right now we're still waiting on a Winds of Winter, which is going to be book 6. And I mean, the dude says he writes it a little bit every year, but we're all over here just like, dude, I do not give a flying fuck about the backstory of Westeros right now.
No.
Finish the
The
damn
damn
story.
book.
It's
Right.
been 11 years
No.
since book 5 came out.
Yo, but you know George R.R. Martin was like, y'all not gonna rush me.
Nah.
He was like, I'm
I
not
mean-
gonna rush to finish the book because then it'll end up like the show, and I'm not gonna let that happen to my legacy.
I mean, he
Same
has
thing with Tagashi and Hunter x Hunter.
He has also stated that he would not be limited to 7 books the way that a lot of series are like, we're gonna write 7 because 7 is just that number.
It's
It's
the
the magic
run.
number.
And he's like, if I have to write 8 books, I have to write 8
Right.
books.
You gotta write 11. You gotta write 11.
Yeah.
People gonna keep reading whether or not. One of the things I found funny was when they ended Sherlock Holmes right on a cliffhanger, right? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, right, ended Sherlock Holmes on a cliffhanger, and it was like Sherlock like fell off literal like I think that's where the term comes from, right? Is like Sherlock literally fell or was like
Off a
hanging off
waterfall.
of a cliff, or was it a
He
waterfall?
fell off a waterfall.
And they rioted out front of this man's house. They literally, like, the way people are rioting about another thing that happened this week.
Which we'll get to.
Another thing of nondescript.
That had not nearly the same impact, but people were so pissed. They were like, how the fuck are you not gonna tell us whether Sherlock lives or dies?
And I mean, like, he's over here, he's like, that's how I wanted to tell my story.
Right, he was like, I wanted it to be, draw
And that-
your own conclusion. Do you want him to live or die?
That happened with the Dark Tower as well, because the Dark Tower
And Sopranos.
And The Sopranos. That's actually a great modern version of that. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, The Dark Tower ended in 2004, so that's pretty modern.
Right.
Um,
But The Sopranos, though, with that fade to black shit, not even fade to cut to black, right? Like, it was a hard cut to, like...
boop, done.
Yep, that's it. You want to know what happened? Imagine it.
But The Dark Tower ends with Roland Deschain. Spoilers ahead. Skip it.
For a book
For
that
all the
ended
people
in...
who haven't read it in the past 18
Yeah,
years.
it ended in 2004. I think I'm fine.
Hey.
Roland goes to the titular Dark Tower.
Yeah.
He makes his way in. It was a big moment, and then it ends. It ends with the doors shutting behind him, and it was just Roland who made it. All his companions are either dead or no longer with him, and it was a big moment because he started out alone and it ended alone.
Yeah.
And it was his quest to get to the Dark Tower. And then there was a 3-page part of the book that was like, hey, this is where I wanted to end it. Please don't read any further. But my editor is saying that this isn't a good spot to end. So I'm going to let you decide whether or not you want to read further. Can you feel me sighing? And that was, quote, can you feel me
That's
sighing?
Absolutely great.
Like, that was Stephen King just putting up 2 middle fingers.
Right, like I had to write some more bullshit for this. I'm letting you know it's gonna be bullshit. It's like if they had made whatchamacallit, make a sequel, Steven Spielberg make a sequel to like E.T. Like I didn't feel like this
They did.
needed.
It's called Wally.
So yeah, I mean, like, and then me being me, I had to read on just because it was there.
Yeah.
And so I read it, and it was fine, and it was really funny because my brother-in-law was like, "Didn't you think it was like a big mind fuck?" I'm like, "You clearly have not read too many paradoxical stories." 'Cause
Right.
No, it really wasn't that bad. I figured out what was going on pretty quickly, and I could tell that Stephen King was just like, boop, 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 just like writing stuff down for the sake of
It was
Can we
all
talk about
a
Lil B's level of
dream.
commitment here for a second? He's up to date on One Piece. He's read the entirety of The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
and all of A Song of Ice and Fire,
All of A Song of Ice on Fire.
And Berserk.
Current with Berserk.
and Attack on Titan.
And, I mean, that one's not crazy.
Damn, that's crazy.
Like,
no, but like I.
This is
All
pretty
of
crazy.
The Dark Tower and One Piece just has me going, like, when did Stephen King start The Dark Tower? The 80s?
1979.
Shit.
How
many books are there?
That was
8
before
books.
he started his coke bender.
I'm pretty sure he was already doing that.
Yeah, no, it was like this was right around the
Can you-
time he started his coke
The
bender.
only person I can imagine, like, Stephen King doing coke with would be, like, Bob Dylan.
Really?
Can you imagine like Stephen King and Bob Dylan like just snorting lines in like the back room of the White Horse or the White Horse Tavern?
I can imagine
French
Stephen
Village.
King snorting coke with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm pretty
right?
positive he's done all kinds of drugs. So
I can see him and Rick James getting the fuck down. What do you mean? Like, yo, that Christine was some wild shit, son. How you imagine a car rolling and murdering people? That's bananas, Steven. Here, take some more of this coke.
write more down, man. You got a killer story.
I
ahead
feel
of
like there
you.
needs to be there should have been a Charlie Murphy story where he was
I
hanging
was
out
gonna
with
say,
Stephen King.
one
like-
time I got kicked in the chest by Charlie Murphy. Did I ever tell you this, Steven?
Well, cycling back to Berserk, which
There
is
we
how we
go.
got down this crazy tangent of fantasy.
It was not cocaine.
It was not cocaine, no. Maybe a little bit of mead, but... So we wind up having Kentaro Miura pass away, which was tragic, and the last chapter of 364, which we assumed was going to be the final chapter of the story, comes out in May. Very frequently, or very quickly after his death.
Okay.
And it was like a heartbreaking chapter for all the fan base to read. And then maybe about a month and a half ago or so, we wind up getting an announcement that Koji Mori, his childhood friend, is actually going to take over the mantle for creating Berserk. And so what ended up happening is these two were both apprentice mangaka, actually were working under the same master, to my knowledge, owns Young Animal, which is the publishing studio.
Okay.
And so with Koji Mori being childhood friends with Kentaro Miura for so long, he actually knows the ending to the story. And he has all of the outlines and everything that Kentaro Miura was working on.
It's like with Togashi and his wife.
Yes.
Okay.
He kind of was like, I have the knowledge of this story and the ability to finish it. I feel like it would be almost insulting to his memory if I didn't take it over.
Right.
And he has the entirety of the publishing studio backing him. All of the apprentices are on board.
And the fan base is back again.
Oh, the whole fan base is right in there.
Right there with it. Okay.
And as far as you know, he has no intention of just like sprawling off on his own thing.
No, he has actually made a complete statement. He's like, I am not going to spiral on some tangents and write other stories. He's like, I have all the information that I have from him, and that's it. That's all I'm using.
This is not like a Matt Reeves, Christopher Nolan kind of situation.
Where all of a sudden we're going to go down some crazy storyline that makes no sense
And
whatsoever.
we're starting all over, baby.
Starting over. I now have the money of the backing of this franchise.
Yeah, this
Watch
is
out.
So,
One.
I mean, let me take a sports analogy, I guess, here. It would be like he has the whole of golf, and this is the hole he has to get to, and this is the general track he has to get to, and he just has to play the hole.
I mean, if that's what your analogy wants to be, yeah, I mean, that is fitting. He has a path, and that's the path he's going to follow. He said he wasn't going to deter from it in any way. Then, on June 10th, we wound up getting a new chapter, and it was... I was nervous about reading it, and so I wound up rereading the Fantasia arc, or most of it, which is the most recent arc that we're in. So I was rereading the Fantasia arc, and then I jumped from 364, where we left off, to 365, and I really wanted to focus on the art style. Not so much on the storytelling. I was like,
Yeah.
is the art still kind of holding true? Because
Right.
Berserk was such an art intrinsic storytelling process.
Right, that's what made it stand out from all of the other manga, or like I guess that's what gave it its real like character and appeal.
Right.
Okay.
The amount of emotions that they were able to express on their characters without words.
Right.
You know, instead of tell it, they showed it.
Yeah.
And you know, this stems way back to the beginning of the story, where at one point Guts is defending some helpless person.
Yeah.
And defending is, I put that in quotations, because
Right.
he was really just trying to kill the demon that was
Tormenting the person, yeah.
Yeah, he was really just trying to
Yeah.
kill this person because
Anime shit.
he was getting information about Griffith, and he winds up killing this demon and everything, and he ends up like kind of saving her in the process as well, and then she gets incredibly upset and yells and blames Guts for the death of her family, which did happen. And it wasn't exactly his fault, but
it wasn't
it wasn't not his fault.
right.
She's like, I'm gonna kill you, and he kind of like picks up his sword and he goes, find me if you want, and then he turns to walk away, and it was this like real badass moment.
Right.
And
You're like that's how you
yeah.
get introduced to Guts.
And it's
right?
like
Yeah.
we're in like maybe chapter 10
Yeah.
or something,
Yep,
and we're like,
yep.
yeah, and then he turns away and he like just lowers his head and just kind of like, he doesn't like really cry, he doesn't draw tears for the character,
Yeah.
but you can tell that this dude is heartbroken.
Yeah, he's like, damn, that's
And
fucked up that had. It's like,
no words.
I hate to have to leave her
So,
like that.
how did the dialogue in it feel? Did it feel like seamless?
It really didn't feel like there was too much change in the way the dialogue worked, and I really feel like a lot of that comes with the apprentices that were working under Mirola.
Yeah, right. And they knew how he liked to tell his stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been working with him for years.
Right.
And so we come in and, you know, it picks right up from where 364 left off. Like, no time jumps, no, hey, what happened at this moment? We're going to pan somewhere else, just right back into the action.
Yeah.
The amount of dialogue that they have is actually very limited. It was a pretty short chapter.
Okay.
But I'm okay with shorter chapters if we get them more regularly.
Right.
Because to be honest, the year and a month gap that we had from Kentaro Mirola dying to this now,
it's painful, right?
it's not uncommon. As
Yeah.
So-
as a up-to-date Berserk reader for the past
Yeah.
9 to 10 years,
Yeah.
I've been up to date since chapter like 340. Maybe 345.
When you say chapters like that, like, and I get that it's manga, right? So it's like, you know, chapters are more like issues, but like to date, I think the largest book that I have read to completion was 99 chapters, right? Like, and you're talking some chapters were around like 6 minutes, some ranging around like 40 minutes,
Right.
reads, right? Like, but like just to be like in it for that long.
I'm very slowly making my way through Count of Monte Cristo, which is over 100 chapters.
Yeah.
That's a long book, too.
Yeah.
Very long, very good.
Very good
Yeah.
book. I would highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't read it.
Also, great movie. Also a great movie.
There's multiple versions of that movie.
The like 2000
right, you have
version
to.
of
I was
it
gonna
is
say,
very- the 2000 version of that movie.
because you say
is very
Romeo
good.
and Juliet, right? And I'm like, do you mean the one by what the fuck is damn?
Yo,
Leonardo
the
DiCaprio.
Leonardo
Yeah,
DiCaprio one
exactly.
is so great. Mercutio is like way ahead of everybody in that movie.
But I am pretty thrilled that Berserk is back.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
from judging from the chapter that I read, I have a lot of faith that while it might be coming to an end sooner than people kind of anticipated, if the story had continued, obviously barring Kentaro Mirola's death.
Exactly.
I'm assuming they're keeping it shorter though, so they don't go off too far.
Exactly. They don't want to add fluff. They don't want to make
No.
it seem like they're dragging it out, especially, again, because of how long it really felt like we were being dragged on for when Kentaro Miro was still alive and he was working
Yeah.
on other
I mean the
mangas.
gaps between and the gaps between issues, right? Like
Oh, it was insane.
Yeah.
It was insane. We would go, sometimes there was one time where we got 3 chapters in a row, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, and I was like, whoa, are we getting like
Yeah.
back into the swing of writing Berserk regularly? And
Right.
then all of a sudden we went a year and a half till the next one. And I was just kind of like,
Right. Head scratcher, right? Like you're out here like, what happened? Where the consistency?
and it made it really hard for me to be a consistent reader for that because I was just like,
I feel like
I don't remember what was happening.
that's the pain of an anime fan though, right? Like, or a manga fan, right? Like, somebody who consumes that kind of media is used to, like, for like me personally,
I'm
right?
never
like,
getting a season 2 of No Game No Life, and I've
Well,
had to accept it.
High School of the Dead, right? Like, High School of the Dead was a big one, like, and I know I'm not the only one on the internet that wishes that there was a season 2 of that, like, that crowd service
Right.
zombie shit, but it was like, it was intense, it was great, and then all of a sudden it was like, that's all you get.
And plenty of fan service in that show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was like, that's all you
The
get.
modern
for free.
example would be like if Spy X Family doesn't get a second season.
Right. Something that is like absolutely at the top of everyone's
No,
watch list.
the modern example would be like if they didn't finish How I Met Your Mother, right? It would be
Oh,
like,
that's a completely different genre.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like
I'm gonna cut you off on that. So No Game No Life was fantastic, 1 season. Spy X Family is fantastic. It's like the #1 rated anime in the world right now, and it would be like just no
Done.
second season.
There was a show called Revolution that was a American show. I don't remember what TV show
yeah,
it went out on, but
sitcom kind of style.
no, it was not a sitcom.
No?
It was actually an action show where
Okay.
like we lost the ability to use all technology.
Was it on Fox? Because Fox has a history of being like, here's 6 episodes.
Well, they ran like 2 seasons, and I mean, like,
Yeah.
it was not exactly groundbreaking. It was an entertaining show,
Yeah,
and
sometimes that's all it's got to be, right?
but they just canceled it after 2 seasons, and they had like a lot more that they could have continued on with, and decent named actors in it.
yeah,
And it was just kind of weird that they like. That's a good example of just a show that just dropped.
out of nowhere.
Out of
right?
nowhere.
Yeah.
I actually had another question about Berserk. So, how are they doing writing credits after his death? Kentaro, right?
It's still original story by Kentaro Miura,
Written by...
written. Well, I don't know if it's saying specifically written by Kentaro Miura anymore because it's not him writing it. He has an outline that
Yeah,
kind
but
of,
that's it.
but
It's
it's
just-
not the actual words that go to paper
But
that are
he's
published.
always on the byline.
Original story by Kentaro Miura is always going to be on there, and then it's going to be published by Young Animal and by Young Animal staff, directed by Koji Mori.
All right, to round this out, I have another question. Back to what we were talking about. What would you say your favorite show that never got like a continuation would be?
Oh, that's tough, but I'm going to have to go with a classic answer and go with Firefly.
Yeah. But I mean, you
That
guys
is-
got the
that is
movie
a
though. That was
really
kind of
good
like
one.
an OVA.
I
right?
mean, the OVA was Serenity, it was the movie and everything,
Yeah.
but like that was not.
That's not the continuation.
There's not the continuation of it's a little bit of a continuation of the story, but that's not what I would consider a story that had,
the arc that it deserved.
and also just a ton of potential
Yeah.
that could have
Yeah.
continued on.
It could have been the new Star Trek. Like
Honestly, it could have. Yeah.
It could have been like it had the potential to be what Guardians of the Galaxy was like before, like but in a more not serious tone, but like
Believable.
yeah,
a more less marvelly superhero. tone.
Exactly.
The Firefly
exactly.
crew
Yeah.
were all humans.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. But it had like that same kind of like campy like character. Yeah,
Kind of like Cowboy Bebop.
right.
That also is a good example.
Yeah, that's another
a good
one that I kind of wish would. Is that your answer for that
I
question?
mean, that wasn't one I really thought of. Can I say that I want them to redo a final season? Because I would love for them to redo the final season of Kenshin.
Ooh, that is a
We
hot
went
take.
from like Shishio to like, let's find a dog that swallowed a key.
Yeah, it went from like that's a example of just a show that had like its climax in the middle of the story,
Yeah.
and then its falling action was just so boring.
Right.
It was
Yeah,
awful.
yeah,
Like,
you're
the Shishio
what the
arc
fuck happened? Like,
Yeah.
So unbelievably peak anime.
Just yeah.
And like peak '90s anime too.
Yeah,
Like the great.
that's
You
that
remember when
classic
he was
shit.
able to light his sword on fire?
Oh.
Do you know why he was able to do that? Because of all the fat that accumulated on the blade from all of the people he killed.
Yeah.
And then he's fighting this guy who has no sweat glands
Yep.
Like seriously, he was burned alive to the point where he had no sweat glands. So the way that he won the fight was by outlasting him until eventually he died from being unable to sweat.
Because they were also fighting on a ring surrounded by fire.
That's
I forgot about that.
Right.
I forgot about that. That's a good point of showing how cool the fight was. That I forgot that they were surrounded by fire the whole time.
Yeah.
Damn. So,
But yeah, I'm pretty pumped for Berserk to be back, and
Good.
I definitely think that the whole fan base is in agreement that we're all feeling the same way. It'll be very interesting to see how regularly it gets published.
Yeah. But but everybody's in agreement that this will be a gratifying kind of ending.
Right. No one's really like, oh, this is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Or at least I haven't seen anyone
Right.
really be like, this is a horrible idea. This is not a way to appreciate Mirowa's legacy.
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually, no, really. Like, please continue the story. I'm not expecting it to be maybe perfect adaptation of what he wanted.
What he could have. Yeah.
But I have confidence with the publishing studio and with his childhood friend to be able to finish the story.
And here's why I believe him when he says that. Can you just imagine these two sitting out on the porch the whole time, drinking mead, and they're just like, you know what? What if I have guts do this? And he's like, that seems like a cool idea. Alright, cool. Alright, let me grab my notes. Writing it down, and he's just talking with his friend, like, sitting there drinking, coming up
And
with
again,
I
Kojimura,
could totally see that happening, and, like, that's how he knows how it ends.
Shout out to our Japanese listeners who drink mead, though.
I mean, we were just having whiskey. You know,
Yeah.
it's too bad I didn't bring over Japanese whiskey.
Hey, I mean, we have sake. I still have that sake.
Really? I love sake.
Oh man, that shit hit me hard last week. I ain't even gonna hold you.
Did you get all rosy faced just to get, like, culturally relevant with that?
You mean culturally appropriate? Like,
As a white guy, I'm gonna just say sorry. I'm not entirely sure what for, but it's usually a good idea.
and on that note, did you have anything to say?
I don't know. Did you want me to touch at all on One Piece?
Oh, we didn't even talk about
We
One
didn't even
Piece
talk about
yet.
One Piece.
I mean, that one's a little shorter and sweeter. It's
Yeah, no,
which
go
is
ahead. Yeah.
hilarious to say about
Right,
One Piece
right,
because that is the opposite
The
of what
anime,
One Piece
the
is.
end all anime.
I think
right.
at this point, One Piece might just be like the longest running series.
No,
Just
What has more episodes?
No, I
The
think-
Simpsons or One Piece?
it's probably One Piece.
Damn.
Yeah, no, I looked this up. The Simpsons have, I think, 582 episodes.
It's more than
Because
582. I think
what I
it's
was
like
trying to
700
do is I was
something.
trying to calculate the entire runtime of The Simpsons comparative to the total runtime of the Confederacy, and to see like how it would
What?
measure up. And it turns out,
It's
like,
moments like that I'm glad the camera's rolling, right? Because it's like only facial expressions can really like. I'm sorry for our listeners, but only facial expressions can really like display the level of like confusion that came across
anyway, well, if
mine
you have the average episode of The
and B's
Simpsons at
face just
22
now.
minutes, it turns out if you watch 13 episodes of The Simpsons every day, you will have finished The Simpsons by the time that the South lost the Civil War.
So One Piece is continuing.
One
their-
Piece is a long story, and they're up to, I guess, 1,018 episodes at this point. The chapter-wise is at 1,053.
Which is twice as long as the Confederacy lasted, so fuck y'all Confederate
They
flag.
are about the same length as the Simpson episodes. So.
Damn.
But they're going on break, and Oda, the mangaka for it, Ichira Oda, he decided that he needed to take a month to step back and process his own thoughts as we enter the final saga.
Okay.
And that was huge news for a lot of the fan base, and a lot of people were freaking out like, oh my god, One Piece is going to end so quickly, because there was that mistranslation about the final arc.
Right.
And it's like, well, really, we probably still have about 5 more years of One Piece.
Okay, so you're saying that because of the mistranslation, people were fearing that this was like the imminent, like...
The imminent end.
Right.
Yeah, there was
But-
a lot of confusion and fear about that, and definitely the whole fan base was obviously abuzz
Yeah.
with this information as we're all processing it and trying to figure it out. And we're ending the longest arc in the history of One Piece.
Right.
You know, this arc, the Wano arc that we've been in, was split into 3 parts too.
Okay.
And just
Damn.
part 3 is the longest arc in the history of One Piece.
Really?
So if you put
that story, would you say, is this the arc that will really like define One Piece, like as it, I guess, ages?
That's tough because honestly, I would argue that the Enies Lobby arc, which came out in like 2006,
Right.
was probably one of the peak climaxes for a lot of people, especially including myself. I would say that arc or the Marineford arc.
Yeah. That's
which-
what solidified you as a One Piece fan.
No, I was solidified before that. Because keep in mind,
Yeah.
we're talking around chapter like 350 and
Yeah.
chapters like 500.
Right. Yeah.
Like
You're
you
like,
can't
I read
read
500 chapters
that
of
much
this
of
shit.
it without being involved.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
I probably wasn't a cemented fan until we got through Sanji's arc and Nami's arc way back at the beginning of the story.
Okay.
Which we're
Okay.
talking around like, and at that time I was an anime watcher, so we're talking around episodes like 25 to 40.
Okay, so
Like,
not to
it was
get
early on.
not to take another tangent, but interesting that you bring that up. What made you transition from being an anime watcher to a manga reader?
I got caught up with the anime, and I just didn't feel like waiting any longer. I had a roommate that was a manga reader,
Yeah.
and he's like trying to talk with me about the story, and I'm like, dude, I'm not there.
I'm not there yet.
I'm not there yet. Please don't spoil me. And then eventually, honestly, it was just one day where he and I were just sitting around the house and having a couple drinks, and he's like, just try it.
Yeah.
He was like, just give it a shot. Here, like, you know their voices, you know what they sound like,
Right.
you know what the actions are supposed
Right.
to look like. Why don't you just go ahead and read it?
Yeah.
So, if you start One Piece and spend 9.5 hours of it each day watching, by the time you finish it, the Confederacy would have fallen.
I really love how long that took him to do that calculation too.
But your transition though, like listen, the breath that you gave him to run that just now was like, God, that was great media. Do you have media training? Because that was perfect.
And so, I mean, like, the story's gonna come back. It comes back on July 25th.
Yeah, okay.
And we ended on a really cool high note the past couple chapters because the arc is wrapping up.
Yeah.
We've been in Wano since 2018, June of 2018 to be specific. So it's been a 4-year arc that we've been in here. And it started on like chapter 907 or 8.
God
and we're on
damn.
chapter 1053.
These
Like I said,
mangas!
Right.
Run!
9.5 hours each day.
Like, whole mangas span what was like one arc.
Yeah, no, seriously, dude. We couldn't even get a second season of High School Booth
How many arcs in One Piece are longer than 148 episodes?
148 episodes. You see, I don't know what the numbers translate to via episode to
What would you say the average read time of an issue is?
of an issue for like one chapter.
Yeah.
Probably about like 25 minutes or so. And that's because
Okay.
I'm taking my time. I could speed read through it in about 5 minutes.
How many
okay.
chapters generally make an episode of an anime?
About 1.
Okay, so
Initially, it was a little bit more condensed
Yeah.
because the initial chapters were longer until he started to get
Right.
into a more routine-based scenario.
yeah, because I think Hunter x Hunter has 148 episodes, but I think it goes into the 270s of chapters as far as the manga goes.
But it
So
also
if you're at chapter what?
1053 for One Piece.
Okay, so that's 4 times longer than Hunter x Hunter.
And, I mean, keep in mind that there is some DBZ-esque problems with the anime, which is another reason why I started to transition away from it, and why I haven't been able to get back into it. Like, I was like, oh, maybe I could watch that arc now that I've read it, and, I can speed my way through it. And there are scenarios where they're just, like, crowds running, people grunting and pushing, and it's just, like, it's the equivalent of them screaming in Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, the anime can't continue forward on a weekly basis because of the fact that the manga they're going to
stalled.
catch up to it.
Yeah.
And so I actually would not be shocked if in the future there's some type of One Piece Kai The way that Dragon Ball Z had an abridged version where they condensed everything from like
You know what
250
calculation I want to do
episodes.
now? I want to look up the collective amount of time that Goku spent screaming relative to how long the Confederacy lasted.
No, what I was just thinking about was like how like epic that was when you were like fucking like 12 years old, right? Yeah, like yeah. You're like, God damn, this literally spent like the last 15 minutes powering up.
He spent that series had like 12 episodes to cover a 5-minute period of time.
Yo,
And that's what Dragon Ball Z Kai really kind of did.
yeah, and
So
that's why I
wouldn't
can't
be-
stand OVAs to this day because of what the Hellsing OVA did to the original storyline.
Ooh, yeah, that's tough.
You took a dark fantasy and then turned it into just like a fantasy.
Or a musical.
Did they sing in that?
No, but the Joker might.
Oh boy, here
I'll
we go.
tell you that after this break. What were we gonna start on?
Who the fuck asked for this?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, everybody, who the fuck asked for this?
Yo, it's me! It's me, the guy who asked!
What is this?
But why? Hey, who man is this?
Why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Who man is this? You serious?
They're making a sequel to the Joker,
Go
which is
on.
fine. Which is fine.
Is it?
Which is fine.
Is it?
And they're bringing in Harley Quinn, which is fine.
Is it?
It's fine.
Who's gonna play Harley Quinn?
Right.
Lady Gaga. I can get
Excuse
it. She's
me?
crazy. That's fine.
Excuse me.
That's fine.
Is it?
That's fine.
When Margot
But
Robbie
now
is
it's
right
a
there.
musical, so I'm not sure if it's fine.
First of all,
It might not be fine.
what?
Joker musical.
Elaborate.
It's the Joker, but it's a musical.
According to
Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga.
Oh my god, what if he sings like Johnny Cash?
According, he has to, right? Like he absolutely has to sing like Johnny.
I don't think there's another option.
So, a Joker sequel is officially in the works, and director Todd Phillips has revealed that the title for the sequel will be Joker Folie à Deux. Phillips, who directed and co-wrote the first Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix, is teaming up again with co-writer Scott Silver on the sequel. Phillips shared the red script cover on his Instagram page a couple of days ago, right?
You can run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time.
But you'll
Sooner
never
or later,
get the
Joker cut you
Batman.
down. Sooner or later, Joker cut you down.
Ghost Riders in the sky. Just think about like the amount of lyrics that are available for that.
Oh my god. So what you're suggesting is that they do what was that fucking
He doesn't have to change the lyrics
what
for
was that
Cocaine
fucking
Blues.
what was that fucking Beatles movie that they did, like it was the musical
Yellow
but it,
Submarine.
No.
It was like a recent documentary.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
no. It was the movie that they did that was just Beatles songs,
Across
right?
the universe.
Yes. So what we're suggesting here is Across the Universe, but with the Joker and Johnny Cash.
Hollywood! Where
Make
is
it
our
happen!
Batman?
Make it happen!
Because I'm actually kind of here for that if we swap Joaquin Phoenix out with Jack Nicholson.
No, but you see,
It's a sequel.
You can't swap Joaquin Phoenix if it's gonna be Johnny Cash based because Joaquin Phoenix played Johnny Cash and Walk the Line.
I know, but
Which
I
probably makes him
also...
a variant somehow.
Okay, right?
No, like, so one of the big things we talked about last episode is we're just waiting, because Square Enix did a mega drop. Like, they announced the next part of FF7 remake, they announced the Crisis Core remake, and they announced Kingdom Hearts 4.
I do remember hearing about Kingdom Hearts 4.
So we were saying it was like, so MCU already is canon with every episode of The Simpsons. Thanks, Loki.
Spider-Pig.
And you can't forget about that one too.
Yep.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Yep. So it makes every single like flashback into the the past or alternate story with The Simpsons. Not only canon with The Simpsons, but also canon with the MCU. So what I want to know is the moment that they put Avengers into Kingdom Hearts. When they put Avengers into Kingdom Hearts, all of these Kingdom Hearts fans' minds are going to explode by trying to say how Xemnas is the root of all of this.
Oh my goodness, because of the fact that, oh my god, MCU is a Disney property.
Yep.
Disney's involved in Kingdom Hearts. Final Fantasy's involved in... Oh, good grief.
Yeah, which means the crossover is imminent, right?
Oh, good
Like I said,
grief.
I also said last week, I just want them to, like, Sora, Donald, and Goofy to crash on, like, regular Earth. And then, like, look for Captain America, and it's just, like, actually Chris Evans.
I'm really just seeing this now in my head,
the
and
possibilities.
I'm seeing Sora running around with Captain America and the Hulk.
Oh god, why? I definitely... Okay, so if Sora was gonna run around with anybody, I feel like it would either be Captain Marvel or Thor.
I could see Thor. Thor would be a
Sora
good one.
and Thor. Thor would be like,
Thor and Sora!
I like your key thing. My question is, are you paying for the Joker movie opening week? The Joker musical opening week?
You know, normally it's been a really long time since I went and saw a movie. I think the last movie I went and saw in theaters was Venom 2, and it was...
I saw Homecoming in theaters. Or, not Homecoming, No Way Home in theaters.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it was just, you
And
know...
Batman.
Venom 2 was kind of meh, but it was like, you know, Kelly and I were really just like, wanted to get out, go see a movie, and just...
Yeah,
it worked.
Right.
It worked. And
It's after quarantine, right? You're like, we just need to do something outside of the house.
Might go see the Joker musical for the sake of I need to know.
What is this exactly?
Oh my god.
To be honest, that's why I listened to Donda too.
I got to know what is this thing that I'm watching.
So
That is why I listened to Donda.
now we're proposing.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right. Sung by Johnny Cash.
Dressed as the Joker. Harley Quinn is Sally.
Oh my god.
And Johnny Cash is dead! Ha
This is some Deadpool-esque level fourth wall bullshit.
Yeah, nah, I don't know.
It's not going to be that bad. Honestly, if it turns into a musical, I really do agree with you. Jack Nicholson would be the better choice.
But seriously, like, think about it. The Kingdom Hearts fans are going to try to justify how Xemnas is at the root of everything.
You know, now that we've said all this, it makes me think, you know, sans Tim Burton, this is going to end up like Sweeney Todd, right?
Sweeney Todd was Tim Burton, wasn't it?
That's why I said sans Tim Burton. In this instance, right? Instead of Tim Burton, we have Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix instead of Tim Burton and Johnny Depp.
It's
right?
gonna be a dude singing as he murders people.
Alright, well,
it's Sweeney Todd.
I have a relevant Lighthouse update because probably a variant of the MCU universe would be the Dragon Ball Z universe, because the episode that we did, where it was what if you take the MCU and you put them in the Tournament of Power, after I watched Doctor Doom and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
That's way back too.
That was like early.
That was like one of your first episodes.
Yeah.
So I finally watched Doctor Strange and the
Callback.
Multiverse of Madness, and I'll say, yeah, Scarlet Witch should have been on that top 10. But I don't know if she would have fought to save the universe.
I told you. I told you so. And absolutely not.
One more time.
I told you so.
Not at the time of us doing that episode.
I mean, that's the thing though about the MCU is like, and I think Stan Lee has even actually made this a point in one of his interviews where they were like, hey, power scaling, the fans want to know who's stronger, blah blah blah, and he goes, the person who's stronger is the person I want to be stronger at
the
time.
moment. Right,
Yeah.
right. Because there's literally the one above all, right? So then you get to the discussion like who's more powerful, Jean Grey, the one who wiped out all the mutants, or
That would be Scarlet Witch.
right, or
All
the
mutants
one
except
above
for
all,
152.
or the one above all, right? Who is literally
Stan Lee.
the one above all.
He's Stan Lee. Like the one above all is literally Stan Lee.
Except for he totally looks like Keanu Reeves in the comic books.
Isn't he just like a fucking white figure?
No, he's like showed up in the comic books and he totally looks like some like burnt out biker dude. Like,
So you're saying Keanu Reeves looks like a burnt out biker dude?
are you saying he doesn't?
He kind of does. John Wick kind of does look like a burnt out biker dude. It doesn't
a leather
mean
jacket on him.
doesn't-
Let me get back to you.
It doesn't mean he is a burnt out biker dude. Maybe that's just his style.
I'm just saying, maybe I just need to see a picture of Keanu Reeves in a leather jacket.
I'm just saying you could remake Old Dogs with Keanu Reeves, Ben Affleck, and Nicolas Cage, and it would still be the same movie.
Also, Lighthouse update.
Damn,
I
that's
need to
actually
watch.
very accurate.
Also, Lighthouse update. I need to watch 16 episodes of Full House.
Oh yeah, rest in peace, Bob Saget.
Rest in peace, Boston Celtics.
Did you know that Bob Saget was actually the narrator for How I Met Your Mother?
No.
Every single time that it opened up with, "So kids, let me tell you," it was Bob Saget. It wasn't actually Ted's character, I think Josh Radnor.
Really?
Who the fuck cares? Fuck Ted.
It was Bob Saget the whole time. Was our
I got
narrator.
compared to Ted too many times, and it makes me feel...
You look nothing like Ted.
No, I mean like personality-wise. And I'm like, y'all can eat a bag of dicks.
So people called you a shitty human?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I know, it really does.
I would disagree with them too.
Well, a lot of people are disagreeing with the FDA lately, and think the FDA can eat a big old bag of dicks. After they recently instilled a temporary ban on all Juul pods and Juul products.
Yeah, because that's the major thing that's been going on this week.
So the FDA bans Juul e-cigarettes, pursues a crackdown on all nicotine products, right?
Juul only right now.
Yeah, right now cigarettes are still fine. In fact, you can still buy a Views or vapes.
Yeah, so I do find it quite interesting, and this CNBC article doesn't really go into why the FDA leaned on Juul so hard, but after further examination, the ban is part of the FDA's broader review of all the vaping industry and the pressure that they faced from politicians and public health groups throughout the years to regulate the segment as it is new and growing throughout the tobacco industry. And
for the longest time, I admit, it was like the wild fucking west.
I mean, you could go to any gas station and it really didn't matter. There was like, I don't know how the taxing worked on it.
No. There
Like,
was no
before they did,
regulation
like,
on
Juuls and Views and everything. Like when you had to like get a vape and then like buy the juice and everything. Like that really was like.
And then you had people synthetically making their own juices.
Yep. And I was gonna say, I remember in the very beginning of like the vaping like trend, right? Like there were all kinds of crazy disposables that you could get, like these one-off like knockoff kind of brands that were like Juul pods and stuff like that, but instead of Juul it would be like, oh, Emerald pods or some shit.
There were also
like
like gear heads for your vape.
Right. Well, yeah.
And there are less of them, but they're like saying like, dude, my vape can like power your car. Like,
But do you remember when it went from like actually having like almost like a pen or a pipe of some sort, like an actual like a thing that looked like a fat cigar,
where you're like holding
to
a grenade?
Yeah, it was a box.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And it was like, why is it? Why
That's
is
not
this
what
a
I wanted.
box?
So I remember I first came on to vaping through Blue e-cigs, right? Like that was my introduction into the vaping, and that was like slightly before Juul. And
I think it's more than slightly.
Yeah.
Blue was one of the originators.
Right, yeah. That was when we were still working
They were one of the ones that were standing in the middle of the mall.
So I got onto them when we were still working at CVS. So that was like pre 2012, right? Like, so this was I guess you're right. Like these were like groundbreaking like vape kind of things. But even then I was like, it's not as satisfying.
And it was like water vapor or something with nicotine in it.
Yeah, and like propene glycol or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But now these rigs that dudes come with, like, I see that and I think about like the Juul e-cig and I'm like, or not Juul, I think about the Blue e-cig and I'm like, I can't imagine like going from being like a Newport smoker to like holding this fucking like talk box in my goddamn head.
Right? And then like
it's like a walkie-talkie.
Let's not
Like,
forget the amount of clouds.
I think it's probably cultural.
I mean,
You mean,
Our delegation.
I was gonna say douchebags, but
listen, you claim what you claim, right?
hey, I don't vape.
I will say, like, there definitely is something that I think about, like, is this big, like, tattooed dude outside of the bar, and I walk past him and he smells like strawberries. Like,
Yeah, no, dude.
Hey, that could have been his cologne. Don't you put that on him.
perfume. We're not judging nowadays.
So the huge clouds too, like I'm glad that trend. I remember it, like, and then it was like right when Vine got started, right?
Yeah.
And like dudes were like making their whole like vaping trick shots, like their Vine profiles and stuff like that. It was crazy.
The cringiest thing that I think I probably have ever experienced when I had like a vape like that, I walked into a vape shop to get some juice, and they were having a cloud competition with a giant ruler hanging from the ceiling
Shut up.
to see how
Shut
far
up.
they could blow a cloud.
You're a fucking liar.
I am dead ass serious.
Well,
I have never walked out of a building after buying something so fast. I felt my skin crawling just being around something that embarrassing.
What he's not telling you is that he actually participated
in
and
the
lost.
competition and lost. I was gonna say, in all fairness, if you go
as much
back,
as our podcast may suck, I don't suck that much.
if you go back and you look at some of like the old like 1920s, 1930s ads for smoking devices that they like, I've literally seen one where it was like 6 cigarettes on like the end of one of those long pipe things that you use.
Oh yeah,
and
that was supposed to keep the smoke and the tobacco from like getting on your
fingers and shit like that. And it's like, who's smoking 6 cigarettes? Like, that's the equivalent of the dudes with them big modified rigs, right?
But I mean, like,
Pure and evil.
So people don't change, is what I'm saying?
yeah, tobacco has been around for so long.
Yeah.
And now, like, the nicotine nicotine is so cemented in our society as
Yeah.
something that people expect to have in their daily lives.
just like
More or
alcohol
less
at this
than
point.
guns.
I would feel like
I'm gonna actually have to go with less right now.
I'm going to go with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Please don't come at us.
We literally have a department for those 3 things, right? Because that's how American those 3 things are. That we decided we need to federally regulate.
We're gonna
that.
have our own branch right now,
Yeah.
specifically for this.
I mean, the Americas were known for their tobacco, right? Like that's
Well, that
one
was
of
our cash crop.
Yeah,
Native
yeah,
American peace pipes, were they spliffs or straight dank?
I don't know how prevalent cannabis was in America.
Peyote?
I can't imagine it flat out didn't exist.
No,
I
I,
can't
don't think it
imagine
didn't
them
either.
just handing around tobacco, and then all these angry-ass imperialist white dudes are like, you know what? You're pretty chill.
Europe went crazy over tobacco the same way it went crazy over sugar and spices, dog. Like once Europeans started smoking like American tobacco, that's what like led them to keep going back, because remember, they thought there was gold over here at first, right? And then they didn't get far enough because there was gold over here, but
Yeah.
that was like further south and further west.
Very farther.
But they hit that coastline and they were like, oh, this fucking tobacco shit? Like, I'm gonna need to take that with me.
Right. And I mean, like, again, that became America's cash crop.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, and I guess
And cotton.
Cotton.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the amount of the two that we were producing
Right.
really is what drove
Astronomical. Yeah.
a lot of the industry that we had over here. So
They say without the cotton industry, East India Trading Company wouldn't have been a thing. Right? Because, like, the amount of cotton that America... I think about, like, how prevalent cotton was in industry at the time. Like, you know, robes, sails, clothing, all of that stuff. And, like, before, you were getting it from, like, places like Egypt and shit like that. that. Like,
Right.
cotton wasn't something that Europe was able to really produce a whole lot of. And then when they hit the American South and they found out, like, and then you get the cotton gin that comes into play, right? And they're really able to industrialize that shit. And it's like, it sets the trade industry off, right? Because now you've got this prevalence of raw material that can be used to make all kinds of shit.
It lit the trade industry and the slave industry off.
Well,
the slave industry already existed way before cotton.
Way more.
No. I'll cut you as the resident black dude.
All right, President Black Dude, you chime in here.
I'm a lighthouse update your ass real quick. At that time, they had stopped. Like, the slave trade was like pretty much done, especially in North America, the United States of America, because it's way cheaper to just kind of like farm slaves here in America than it was to keep transporting them from back and forth across the Atlantic. Like, by the time the cotton gin was a thing, right? And
most dehumanizing thing possibly ever said on this podcast.
I don't think so. We have another topic that we need to talk about.
Yeah, and unfortunately...
And you know what? I actually don't know as the...
Okay, so we've been dancing around the bush all episode about the real important issue that happened this week as a round table of 3 men. It's kind of a weird issue, not weird, but for us to talk about. And I had arranged for a guest of ours to come on the show and discuss this topic with us. One who was more suited for the kind of topic at hand, but she is currently busy at Pride Week enjoying her best life.
How about we take a quick break?
And then we'll come back in and handle this the best way we can.
Look, it's a flood.
The flood.
It's flooding.
Get away.
Quick, we need to get to higher ground.
Open the floodgates.
Wait, why can't we talk about Black Stuff?